as is usual, there are some that want to attach some bad policy to a funding bill that would never stand on its own. Joining us now, Travis Weber, as I mentioned, Vice President of Policy. Travis, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, so give us an update on what's being the scuttlebutt from Capitol Hill, what's being talked about to be attached to this emergency funding that Americans support, and there's bipartisan support as well on Capitol Hill for it.
Yeah, so Tony, it looks like the government has to fund itself beyond March 11th. The deadline, the current funding rules expires, and so you've got what's known as the Omnibus funding package, which was in process. But now with Ukraine developing, members want to include Ukraine funding in that. And the latest that we're hearing is that, and is what is being reported on different social media accounts right now, is that the Violence Against Women Act is possibly going to be included in this omnibus funding spending package. So this should be funding the federal government, and yet it's being injected with radical ideologies like what's included in VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, and other likely tangential and unrelated matters not connected to funding the federal government or getting the funding to Ukraine that many agree upon, which is a separate matter, could be brought up separately. I've not been presented with a good reason that this all needs to be rolled into one package. A lot of it's hidden. We don't know exactly what's in it. The text has not been released yet. We don't know what's in the text. And we obviously have concerns with VAWA. This bill would includes gender identity ideology policy provisions, which would allow biological men to have access to women's shelters that are supposed to be protecting women from violence, yet exposing them to the presence of biological men in their private facilities and close quarters where they should not be. Many of these women have suffered abuse, so this shouldn't be happening. It's a major problem. It shouldn't be in the omnibus of all things.
All right, let me break this down real quick for our listeners, because the names of these bills that are usually, it's the exact opposite. This is violence on women is what this bill actually does. But the continuing resolutions is how government has been funded, because they haven't been able to get together on the individual funding bills. Now they're trying to lump everything into an omnibus, which is all of the funding bills or several of the funding bills together. But they're having difficulty with that. So it appears to me, Travis, that they're using this moment where there's unity around one issue, and that is funding for Ukraine, emergency funding, to use that as kind of a smokescreen to not only advance the omnibus, which has a lot of other bad stuff in it, but also this measure, the Violence Against Women's Act.
I do think that's what's going on. We're seeing a crisis exploited to cram through a big package of spending that we don't know what's in it. The text has not been released. Members need time to scour the text. And it appears that they're going to try for a vote in the next couple days on this. So we're going to get a giant bill, and members are going to be voting on something. They don't really know what's in it. They haven't examined it. They're not going to have time to examine it. Yet the crisis of the moment is pressuring them to support something that they don't want to oppose, and many of them want to support aid for Ukraine, but it's being linked to the omnibus, which you detailed for the listeners how that works. I do think this is a moment that people need to understand the types of things that sometimes get thrown in the mix. In this instance, it's the Violence Against Women Act, which we have major problems with, major concerns with, and the public needs to know about this, and Congress should not be cramming these things in when they're trying to pass spending bills.
I think we're in a very short fuse because the House Democrats are leaving tomorrow night for a retreat up in Philadelphia, and so they're going to try to get this thing through as quickly as possible. So what's the action item? What do our listeners and viewers need to be doing?
Yeah, at this point, we need folks to weigh in with their members of Congress, letting them know it's unacceptable to be cramming the Violence Against Women Act into an omnibus spending package. They can do that going to TonyPerkins.com and click on our alert there. And members of Congress need to hear from you, need to hear from everyone that this is just an unacceptable way to go.
All right, Travis Weber, thanks so much for the update. And folks, you can find that information at TonyPerkins.com. The alert is there. You can click on it and it'll give you all the information. Travis, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.